Welcome. We are Neil,
Luke and Dave.
340-somethings reminiscing on the runners and riders of 90s guitar music.
We look at the bands who soundtracked our youth on both sides of the pond and interview some of our heroes from the bands that defined a generation.
You'll hear about the good, the bad and the ugly of 90s guitar music.
This podcast is Stupid and Contagious. Hello and welcome to the Stupid and Contagious podcast, episode 55 of the podcast, and it's the last one of our August summer specials. So next week we will be back to normal services. Dave will be back. So those of you that have missed Dave, he'll be back next week. And yeah, we've got some really exciting guests lined up. Stick around to the end of this podcast and I'll give you some exciting news about next week's podcast. But this week I'm speaking to Jerome Alexandre from Deadcuts. So for those of you who don't know who Deadcuts are, they are the band that Mark Keds from Senseless Things, Jolt, the band that he was in when he unfortunately passed in 2021. So up until then, they'd released two albums, Dark is the Night and Hit on All Sixes, and they're about to release a third when Mark unfortunately passed away. But that album is coming out. Jerome tells us all about it in the interview, so that's exciting. He's just a really nice guy. He speaks really fondly of Mark, and it's just a really nice chat. And if you haven't heard any of Deadcuts music, then definitely go and check it out. It's got Mark's amazing vocal all over it. Mark and Jerome wrote together some really great body of work, I think. And Deadcuts are one of my favourite bands from the last sort of 10 years or so. So it was really cool to get Jerome on to have a chat about that, their music, Mark, and his legacy. So if you are watching this, then please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell. Let us know your favourite Deadcuts songs, what you think of the interview. Yeah, just generally get involved in the comments below. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening, then please do give us a 5-star rating to shoot us up those podcast charts so that more people can find the podcast. But here is Jerome Alexandre from Deadcuts. Enjoy. Jerome, thanks so much for coming on. Are you up to anything musically at the moment? I think I saw something. You're doing something at the moment, aren't you?
So I'm doing a few things. I'm playing in a group called Black Bordello.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
South London. We just shot a video for our song, "The Garden of Earthly Delights." It's got a kind of like David Lynch stroke Wizard of Oz theme. If you can imagine those two things kind of colliding together.
Yeah.
And that was released about maybe 3 weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah.
And we're on to the next with that. We're doing another video for a track we have called Acid Mary. And then we go to the Netherlands to do a festival in October.
Oh, nice.
Style. Yeah, so that's great. I'm also playing with, I don't know if you remember an 80s goth band called Cking Children. Do you remember them?
I don't think I do, no, but I'm sure Luke, the other guy probably will. But yeah.
Well, it's a group from the 80s that I listen to quite a lot, and they're quite sort of infamous on the post-punk goth circles. I've done tours with them. I've gone like to Athens with them, Italy, Germany. We just did a festival in Leipzig.
Oh, brilliant.
Called Wave Gothic Treffen, which was great. There was like about 8,000 Germans all singing along to each song, so that was really nice.
I do like a bit of goth myself.
Yeah, it was kind of what I guess one of the things that I listened to from an early age, because my mother had all like Susie and the Banshees and Bauhaus, Death June and all those records. So yeah, it was kind of a starting point. But being a fan of them and being able to Sex Gang and then being able to play with them later in life has been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a privilege, right? That's great.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Deadcuts in a little while, but before we get onto that, if for any of the listeners or viewers that that don't know who you are, can you just sort of introduce yourself? Just give us a bit of a backstory to your musical journey, if you will.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess I've been playing music all my life. I started when I was about 14 and I was already touring by the time I was 15, 16.
Oh, wow.
I grew up above an infamous studio called Underhill Studios, which
Right.
people like David Bowie would rehearse there, Iggy Pop.
Oh, wow.
When I was about 3 years old, Iggy Pop came upstairs and read me a bedtime story. I mean, I have no
Like, that's a good
barely
story, isn't it?
any
It sounds,
recollection of it, but I vaguely remember it. Yeah, so
yeah.
that was kind of cool. So I guess music's been around me my entire life,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was in a group called the Scuzzies that was sort of part of that whole uh,
That's right. Yeah.
South London, East London scene, and we managed to get a couple of deals on the table and recorded. I became friends with Pete Doherty, and we recorded
Right, right. Yeah.
a track together for that record. And I'd always known Mark, obviously, for years because he used to run a night called Bring Your Own Poison.
Mm.
And I mean, I knew him even before then, but we got to sort of know each other properly around that time, which would have been in the sort of late 90s.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And that's when he asked me to join Deadcuts. So that's kind of how it all manifested and became.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
What sort of music were you listening to at the time? What was your sort of
I,
vibe?
well, I've always had a really eclectic taste. I mean, I've liked anything from like Prince to Sly and the Family Stone to indie rock to classical. I'm
Yeah.
really open book when it comes. If something grips me in my heart and I feel it, yeah, you know,
Yeah. I
I
mean, were you a fan of Senseless Things back in the day?
yeah. I mean, I remember seeing them on the Word and seeing them
Yeah.
play Hold It Down, which was really bizarre because that was a tune that obviously I ended up playing with them at Shepherd's Bush when they did their reunion.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
and yeah, yes, and I was very aware of them. I mean, all the girls at my school had Senseless Things on their like when people used
Yeah.
to draw pictures on their like school
Yeah,
books.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Mark was always on the front of several of these girls' school books.
Not surprised. Good looking young lad, wasn't
Exactly, yeah, yeah. Um, so I was more than aware of Senseless Things, definitely. And
he? Right, right, right. Yeah, just talking about that quickly. How was that Shepherd's Bush gig? I mean, it looks amazing. I didn't make it, unfortunately, but yeah, it looked like a
it was
credible
very
little gig.
emotional. I mean,
Yeah,
and I was amazed that I thought they sounded so tight and so, the audience were just, it was just such a beautiful night. But
yeah, yeah.
it was also quite stressful because like, I was the one who had to look after Mark and get him to the gig.
Right,
I
right.
remember Ben sort of looking at me saying, "You better get him here." I said, "Ben, don't worry. I promise you, I'll get him here." And by hook or by crook, I would have got him there. Because it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
I know he wanted to be there. I mean, he
Of
was
course, yeah.
incredibly overwhelmed. I think after the show, well, by the emotion and the whole.
Mm.
Um, it was just such a beautiful night. It really was.
Yeah, and I think because we spoke to Ben on the podcast a while back now, but
Yeah, I saw that. That was great.
yeah, yeah, and uh, they could have gone on and done a whole tour or whatever, but I think it's nice that it was just those 2 nights in the end. I think that's probably the best way to do something like that.
Well, I think, and this may seem really, really daft, but none of us, because Mark had such a fighting spirit, even
Yeah,
when he wasn't in the best of health, I don't think any of us really realized how much it took out of him to do any show at that
yeah,
point.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But yeah, it is a shame. I would have liked to have seen them do Reading. I know that certain festivals were on the cards, but by that point, Mark was kind of deteriorating, unfortunately. So
yeah, yeah. That's it. So yeah, so Dead Cuts comes about. So was it a pretty sort of organic process? How was the writing process in Deadcuts? Did you both sort of write together or?
Yeah, we always wrote together 50-50.
Ah, cool. Yeah.
It was something Mark kind of insisted on actually. And I I was like, well, you're the lead singer. There's no two ways about that. And he's like, yeah, but I still want you to do backing vocals. And you still, it was, he was a real taskmaster. He'd get to mine at 9 every morning
Yeah, this is
in the
what I've heard.
beginning, and
Yeah.
we'd work. And he said, I'd say, okay, we've written one really good song. That's great. Let's take a break. He said, no, we've got to write 4 real
Hmm.
good bangers. Or, so he was completely committed to making art all the way, until
Yeah.
we'd sometimes be there till midnight and then get that last train home or whatever. And um,
This I've heard this from a lot of people that he was just a really sort of driven individual, you know. He was just sort of laser like focused on what he wanted.
absolutely. And in the beginning, I mean, he totally had his health. If you look at
Yeah, yeah,
any
yeah.
early pictures of Deadcuts, he looked really well. And he was clean for the first few years and
Yeah.
really together, and that was kind of my agreement to join, because at first I was very nervous to join because obviously I'd had my struggles, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the last thing I wanted at that point was for us to both, go off into the deep end. But he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
he was so committed, and even when we did our first shows, like if anyone was sniffing around, like anyone dodgy or any dealers, he'd throw them out.
Yeah,
He'd
yeah,
have
yeah.
security throw them out. I mean, he
Yeah.
was he was even jogging, he was doing all kinds of things. It's just unfortunate that when the band did start to take off, you know, he started to get unwell.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think, I could quite easily have foreseen there are a lot of offers coming through, a lot of yeah, just I think Dead Cuts would still be around now if
Yeah.
unfortunately he'd taken better care of himself.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah.
So when you first started out, you all got in this room. Now, personally, I think Mark's got, or had, sorry, had one of the best vocals,
Mm.
just period.
Yeah.
Like, it's such an incredible vocal. What's it like, sort of being in a recording studio or a rehearsal room and him blasting out that vocal? It must give you the shivers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even more so now that I'm sort of working on the last record,
Mm,
and because obviously it was all recorded live, so in
yeah.
between I can hear him sort of talking, and yeah,
Mm,
the guy just was phenomenal. I mean, he had a real intensity to everything he did.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Lyrically, he was just a genius. Musically, he was just a genius. He was one of these
Yeah.
rare people that almost found it effortless.
Mm,
Like I mean, charisma. That guy had so much. He'd just walk into a room and everyone would notice him.
yeah.
He had that special thing.
Well, the
That's
X Factor that no one on the X Factor has got.
yeah,
That's what he had, right?
yeah. He had that rare thing, that rare combination, like
Yeah.
the fortuitous combination that I think any sort of singer-songwriter who's really worth their merit has.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And,
Yeah. So 2 albums, wasn't it? Dark is the Night and Hitting All Sixes.
mm,
Now, I was just looking through the track listing on Dark is the Night, and it's got like track lengths next to it. And most of those songs are all under sort of 3 minutes. So
yeah.
was that sort of intentional, or did it just work out like that?
Mark had, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think Mark had ADHD.
Right. Okay.
So, like, at one point he was listening to this band, and I can't remember who they were called. They were like a hardcore band out of the States, and that what they would do, this band, is they do one verse and one chorus, and
Right.
that would be the song. And he
That's
was like,
it.
yeah, minimalism, that's how we've got to go. And there were times when I'd say, no way, You know, like this
Yeah.
song's too good. Let's at least have two choruses, please. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think I'm not, I think Mark just he was aware of time as well. I believe now, looking back on it, you know, and I think he wanted to just get as much stuff out as possible in
Yeah.
space of time. And but we did write very fast, you know.
Yeah.
At that point, the first lineup we had was Mark McCarthy from the Wonderstuff, who was on
That's
bass.
right. Yeah, I saw that.
Trevor Sharp, who plays with Miranda Sex Garden, and
Yeah.
so we were really lucky because basically we had our own little studio in Trevor's warehouse conversion. So we
Yeah.
didn't have to, you know, we were all locked in there and we could rehearse pretty much every day. And we did, you know, like we had a really, you know, Mark had a really strong work ethic. He wasn't lazy.
Yeah. No.
Um so yeah, the album came really quick. I mean, we were writing all the time. There wasn't a day in that whole Deadcuts period where I didn't see Mark, you know. He'd
Yeah.
either be at my place writing or we'd be in the studio writing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fair to say Deadcuts music's quite dark, right? Is that just
I
is
mean,
that sort of,
it is, but I think it's also
not in a bad way? I love that. I love darkness music. I think there's a real beauty in it. I think it's really emotive, you know. But you know,
well, I suppose compared to Senseless Things, you could say it was dark. I mean, there's
yeah,
like, I mean, he felt he'd gone through a lot since being in the Senseless Things, and
yeah,
I think he wanted to talk about it and express it and
yeah,
express where he was at that time. You know, had we formed a band in, say, I don't know, 94, it may have sounded completely different. You
yeah.
know,
Right, yeah,
but I think, you know, he wanted to talk about things that were perhaps a bit more personal. And
yeah,
I mean, God, the guy had gone through a lot by that point, as we all had. And
yeah.
you know, but that being said, you know, like a lot of people say to me, "Oh, that's quite a dark band," but the amount of times we were giggling in the back of the van,
Oh, of course. Yeah,
or you know, there was quite a lot of humor in it. You know,
yeah. I think a lot of people have this vision of goth bands that just sort of sitting around not talking to each other in between songs. It's not. It's not like it's just you know. They're just like everyone else. It's just the music just comes from that different place, right?
yeah, sitting around reading Edgar Allan Poe by
Yeah,
candle.
yeah. That's it.
Um, I mean, you know, I think Mark did have a dark side. There's no, I mean, I think everyone does though.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's just,
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's just whether you explore it and you want to reflect it. And I think he really did at that time.
yeah, yeah.
Also, he didn't really want to repeat what he'd done before. You
No,
know,
of course
and
not. Yeah,
I think that's a struggle with a lot of musicians. Sometimes the your core audience is used to something,
yeah,
and if you deviate, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But
yeah,
we did, I would say, we were quite lucky. We used to look at, I mean, our first gig was sold out, and I
yeah.
get like there were some Senseless Things fans there, but Dead Cuts began to generate its own audience.
Yeah,
And
that, that's what you want, really, isn't it?
that's it, you know, and also he was quite reluctant to sort of talk about the past, not because he was ashamed of it or
No.
anything like that, but he really wanted to be talking about what he was doing now. And I don't know, and
Yeah,
you know, all respect to Steve Lamacq because I think he's a lovely guy and everything, but I do remember Cass and Mark going on there and trying to talk about the new Dead Cuts album,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Steve Lamacq sort of going, yes, very good. But anyway, how about the Senseless?
yeah. I guess it's tempting, isn't it? If you've got two members there.
But also they were the bigger band, you know, and
Yeah,
they had a bigger fan base, so it was just natural, you know. I
yeah.
don't, you know, and I don't bear any grudges to that at all. They were a fantastic band, so
Yeah.
yeah.
very ambitious then. You've already talked about Mark's ambition, but I think you're similar, right? You both had ambitions for the band. Didn't want to keep it too underground. You would have sort of tried to get it out there as much as you could, right?
We were lucky. I mean, we were lucky. We got, Peter Doug the artist gone tour with him many times.
Mm.
So we were always playing to quite big audiences. We got to support Killing Joke. We got to do a track with this hip hop group called Flatbush Zombies with
I've got that on my list. Yeah, how did
Oh,
that come
right.
about?
Cool. Yeah, and that they're probably one of the biggest hip hop groups in America, and
Yeah,
we were really into them. So to do that was fantastic, because me and Mark were really, in fact, one of the first discussions we ever sort of spoke about was kind of liking some hip hop, and
yeah,
so that was really exciting to do. And so we had opportunities,
yeah, for sure.
It's just a shame because as soon as booking agents and like there's several cogwheels in the music industry, as soon as we got
Yeah,
onto the
yeah,
second cogwheel, um that's unfortunately when Mark started to get on well,
yeah,
and I think a lot of people assumed sometimes that because he had COPD that he was bang at it. I mean, a terrible thing happened once when, I won't name the group, but we were supporting a certain
Mm.
group and we got to the venue and we'd really been looking forward to this for a long time. We got there and we were told we weren't allowed to have our own dressing room next to the band that we were supporting's dressing room because in fear that we might steal something because we were all a bunch of heroin addicts.
All
Uh,
right. That's
yeah, yeah,
nice.
which, and I got really angry at the tour manager at the time, and I said, "Well,
Yeah, yeah,
you've got any urine sample cups? Bring them out." you know, and that really hurt Mark. I remember that night really badly, and so it was really difficult because it was a stigma.
mm.
Yeah, I mean, you exist in a world where drugs are rife, right?
Yeah, of
And
course.
they're everywhere, and but even still, for some reason, people are very snobbish and they think certain drugs are okay and certain drugs aren't.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
And that used to
There's
really
always
be
that.
my head. And this guy's like telling me this, oh, you can't come because you're into heroin whilst, they're all smoking weed and doing
Yeah,
cocaine. Just as like, oh, for fuck's sake.
yeah. I know. It's just a bunch of hypocrites, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, that's
But I
interesting.
mean, we got to do the O2 supporting the Liquid.
Yeah.
Um, I
How was
remember
that?
Mark. Well, you know what? I got to be honest, and I didn't really like it because for
Mm.
several reasons. One, Mark was late.
Right.
He was 10 minutes late, and I'll never forget all the people, the security coming with their walkie-talkies, going, "Are you ready? Do you ready to go on?" And we're like, "No, not quite yet."
Yeah,
Uh, but when we got on the stage, it was fine.
yeah,
But yeah, it was a bit of a tense situation, and um, Mark was one of these people that didn't really communicate. If he wasn't feeling well, he
yeah.
wasn't to tell you,
Right, right. Yeah,
which is sad. Um,
yeah,
so by that point, Cass had joined the band, and we were, you know, for the first few months, it was going really, really well. And then
yeah.
Mark just seemed to deteriorate really rapidly. If you look at sort of pictures from him from like 2015 up to
Mm.
2021, I mean, you can see he's just deteriorating, and it was really sad, you know, because
Yeah,
it's something that we had meetings about. We had meetings with even our press guy at the time, sort of sat him down and said, what's going on? And I just think, um, you know, I
mm.
don't know. It's just very sad, isn't it? Really?
It's extremely sad. When we spoke to Ben, he was the same. It's just a really tragic loss of a beautiful person,
Yeah.
right? But how was supporting the Libertines and stuff? Was Pete? clean at the time, or was it all still a bit chaotic?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I think because Mark had co-written "Can't Stand Me Now" with
Yeah, that's right.
Peter,
Yeah.
they'd always had a close bond, and I'd had a close bond with Peter as well. So like, he was always very supportive of what we all did. And that helped massively. And that, we actually joined him on stage a few times as well to do a couple of his songs, a song called Broken Love Song. So you can see that on YouTube. And also we went out to Paris. We joined him for that chat Pipe Down, that Baby Show. So he was really supportive. He was really good. And actually Mark didn't fall off the wagon ever when we were surrounded by all that. He just didn't. So it was interesting, I guess you know about the infamous French story. Do you know about that? The Paris story? Okay.
Think so.
So in the very beginning, oh God, we'd been together maybe a couple of months. Peter had invited me and Mark down to do like an acoustic kind of thing down at this venue called the Toriano. And Peter came over to us and he goes, "Oh, I heard you guys got a new band together. That's great. Do you want to come out and do a couple of shows in Paris?" And we're like, "Yeah." Now, I'm thinking he's talking about a month away. He's actually talking about like within the next couple of days, right? Now, usually that's fine, if you've got a passport. I didn't have a passport at the time. Mine had been stolen. Now, I don't know if you know this, but if you lose a passport or it's stolen, you have to wait a month to get a new one.
That's right. Yeah.
So we were sort of like thinking, how on earth are we going to get to? Because we can't not do these gigs.
Yeah.
Like we have to do these gigs. We're main support, and the gigs are sold out. It's Paris. We hadn't been there at that point. We hadn't been to Europe right at that point. So we're like, what do we do? So eventually, they bundled me in a van and they hid me under. Luckily, our van had this couch, and they shoved me under the couch, and we got through customs, right?
Yeah.
And we got there, and we did the gigs, and the gigs were fantastic. I'll send you some of the footage from those shows.
Yeah, sure.
The French were really into Deadcuts. Like all our merch went, everything. It was every time we played there, because we went back a few times, it was always a really good. I always felt that they really got what we were about. But on the way back, however, we were driving, and I don't know what happened to the vehicle, but one of the wheels was sort of moving like that, so that we were sort of moving like snake-like fashion down the fucking motorway. And I think we actually crashed into the customs booth.
That's not ideal, is it? That's not ideal.
So immediately this guy comes on, and he sort of looks like something out of 70s French sitcom. Like he's got like the Betsy Clouseau moustache and the whole.
So are you under the floor at this time?
I'm back under the couch, and he's got a torch, and he came right up to me. I'm under like this, and he's shining it in my face. It's going like that, and there's sniffer dogs everywhere, and we're all panicking. We're all really freaked out. And I don't know whether it was just luck or fate, because he was right up in my face,
Yeah.
But somehow they didn't see me, and he let us go.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that is a good story.
It was great. We always seem to get into little escapades like this,
Yeah, I love all that. That's what the podcast is about, all these little stories. They're brilliant.
It was fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it was always really good fun touring.
Yeah.
It only kind of did get fun towards the end when we were sat outside waiting for Mark for 2 hours to get in the van. But, he always delivered, Mark. I'll say that. Even, we'd be pissed off with him, whatever, for waiting ages for him to get ready. But then as soon as he was at the venue, you know, he just threw down every time. There's not one concert I ever did with him where he wasn't on top form. You know?
Yeah, I mean, watching Senseless Things and some of the Deadcuts footage, it's just his vocals just always on point, isn't it? It's just it sounds like it's recorded, but even when he's singing live, it's just so good.
Yeah, and this really strange thing happened where we had to play. So basically, we got asked to do a night shortly after Bowie died
Yeah,
for the research, and it was a night at where's that place? Bush Hall
yeah,
in
yeah,
King's. No, or was it Shepherd's Bush? No, sorry, it's Shepherd's Bush.
yeah.
And so members of Franz Ferdinand were playing, I think, Madness, Suggs from Madness was playing.
Yeah.
And we had Andy Mackay from Roxy Music was playing. Well, he got up and he joined us that night because we played Lazarus, like the very final song that Bowie ever did a video for before he passed.
Yeah, yeah, I remember.
Mark said, I really want to do that one. Like, if we're going to cover a song, that's the one I want to do. And he sang it that night like it was his own almost.
Yeah, yeah.
We had to mix that the other day, and that was particularly hard because that's a song that was playing at his funeral, at Mark's funeral. And lyrically it's very poignant. But when he sang it, it was as if he'd written it. It was that good, you know?
Yeah.
And he sang it with every like last part of his DNA and emotion, and you know, he was he could really let go and communicate. You know, a lot of musicians posture around and they, you know, they kind of dance around the idea of communicating with an audience. But I felt Mark really just let that shield down completely, let himself go. And when the album gets released, I mean, I'm hoping that it'll be released by January because it's almost finished. And
it's just the third album, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Reveal the Love. I mean, basically, we began recording it in 2019 in Conk Studios, which is the King Studios down in Muswell Hill. And then, of course, he got ill and then he passed away. And I always vowed that I would finish the record because his vocals were already on there. And I said, okay, let's do the testament to Mark. But, mate, I cannot tell you how incredibly hard that's been.
I bet. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to hear, because there's also him talking between outtakes. And
at
one point him going, Jerome, you know, and I'm like,
yeah, that's hard, man. It's hard when you lose someone you love, right? It's difficult.
But what's particularly odd about Lazarus too is that Bowie died on the 10th of January, after releasing that song Lazarus, and Mark died on the 11th.
Oh, really?
I've always found that just a bit, you know what I mean, one of those strange coincidences, you know. But he sang Lazarus like it was his own, you know. And I can't wait for people to hear this record because
I can't wait to hear it either, and I really hope it does well because it's a testament to him and to you, you know, and the band in general. Because I always rate your Deadcuts, and it's a shame. It's what's happened has happened, but it's just life, I guess, isn't it? It's not always fair and it's not always easy.
No, I mean, I must say, I think this album is, in a way, the perfect goodbye for Mark, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad you've put it together, for sure.
It's such a beautiful thing, and the fact that it's called Reveal the Love, I think, because you know, sums Mark up really well because he had such a really liked about him was if he met someone in the audience who had a particular talent, say they could I don't know, like they were good at making t-shirts or they were good at filming or whatever, he'd always try and get them involved somehow.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I
just
thought that was kind, and he wasn't one of these snobbish musicians. He'd go and he'd talk with fans for hours. Sometimes I'd be like
yeah,
backstage, and I'd come out and I'd find him sat having a pint with, a couple of
yeah.
fans. I just thought that was really beautiful. He
Yeah, it
was,
is. It is. It's just a testament to the sort of person he is.
yeah,
Was.
he was never one of these people that was ever, ever thought they were, all that and a bag of chips.
Yeah. Is it right that youth got involved with the production, or did that happen in the end? Or
What happened was we were playing with Killing Joke. We did
Hmm,
this show at Nottingham Rock City, and youth was watching us, and
yeah,
we got speaking. He just thought, I think it sounds great. And next thing I
yeah,
knew, we were at his discussing it at youth's house, discussing
yeah,
doing that. Fortunately, that didn't happen because several months later, just Mark just got iller and iller. And,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he was bedbound, and he just. Last time I saw Mark would have
Hmm,
been November 2020,
yeah,
and oh God, that was very difficult because he was sort
hmm,
of very up, very excited about the future, telling me, oh, can't wait to gig again. And
yeah,
there are like a few options on the table. And oh, man, I just knew
yeah,
wasn't going to get that, even leave the house at that point because he
yeah,
could barely stand up. So, um, yeah, I think I just feel very lucky that I was able to perform with such a
yeah,
prolific, talented, beautiful person.
yeah. And I think that's
Yeah,
the way
you know,
to
and
that's the way you have to look at it, right?
yeah, and I feel, I mean, I feel that, you know, I loved it when Cass was in the band as well. I think we
Mm,
all had this really great rapport, and all the members, all the people that came into the band, it made it special at various points. But
yeah,
getting on stage to play Hold It Down after seeing that when I guess I would have been about 14, maybe.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And then doing that very same song, it was very emotional. I mean,
Did you play the riff?
I played the riff, and
Yeah,
I
it was
felt
just
like
such a great riff, isn't it?
I felt like such a total plank when I watched it because I'd had one too many and did a bit spot of dad dancing.
That's all right. It's not as if you were on stage in front of loads of people or anything. It's fine. It's such a great riff like that. Yeah, you must have
Oh,
been in your element.
I just loved it. It was really it felt right, and yeah, I know there's a documentary coming out where that footage is in
Oh, really?
there.
That'd be good.
I can't say too much about it. Who knows? But there will
Yeah,
be something
fair enough.
coming out
Yeah,
with in. So yeah, I'll let you know more about that when
yeah, for
that's
sure.
transpires.
When can we expect the Dead Cuts album?
I
Is it
think.
so, or you don't know yet?
Well, I'm hoping January of next year, which
Oh,
is
really? That'd be great.
ludicrous when you consider it. We start recording it in 2019, but a
That's
lot
all
has
right.
gone down.
5 years.
Well, yeah. Also, then we had COVID, didn't we? Which sort of
Yeah, well, that shit.
so. But yeah, I would say I would I would estimate what with pressing and mixing and everything. I would estimate January, and I think it would be a good time to put out as a sort of celebration of Mark's, life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I will be doing when I listen to it for sure. Um, won't keep you too much longer, but we asked all our guests if you could have been in a band in the 90s,
Hmm.
who would it have been and why?
Oh my God, that's really difficult.
That's what
And
everyone
you know
said.
what? I think probably, remember Tricky?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I would quite like to play Tricky. That would have been quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, he was cool as
Or
fuck,
or,
right?
or Massive Attack. One of the two.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
that's a good
listening
answer.
to, I'm a big fan of Tricky's. I've got to, and oddly enough, we almost had in Deadcuts Perry Melius, who was Tricky's drummer.
Oh,
So
really?
he almost joined Deadcuts at one. Yeah. And I
Oh,
remember
that's
that
cool.
that whole rehearsal. We were just sat there chatting about Tricky.
Yeah,
Not
he was cool.
work.
I
Yeah,
remember at uni as well. He was cool as fuck, Tricky. That album, that I can't remember what it's called now, but it was everywhere, and he was just really cool. Um, where can
we were
people?
lucky to grow up in the 90s, weren't we? Really,
Yeah, very lucky. Well, this
the
is what
last
we.
best decade, right?
Well, this is why we started the podcast. We think it was amazing, but then we're just constantly trying to work out if we're just old and everyone just likes the music from when they were a teenager. I don't know. I think it was good music back then, though.
No, I think it was a great time because, well, one, if you're an artist, you could actually get signed and you could get some money.
Yeah,
You
that's
didn't have to
true.
be in five bands to earn what you did with one back then. And
Yeah,
also, things were cheaper, rent was cheaper.
yeah,
Going to a club night, you pay £1 to get into Feet First or the venue or whatever. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Things just were better then.
Yeah,
Opportunity.
I used to go to uni. 20 quid. I could get 20 fags and drink all night. 20
Yeah.
quid. Easy. Can't do that now, can you?
No. And 20 quid will get you a train ticket and a kicking out of somewhere.
Yeah. Um, where can people find out about what you're doing? Where's the best place to sort of find you on
Mainly on,
internet?
well, I'm very useless with social media, but I'd say just um on my Facebook, which is Jerome Alexandre, or my Instagram, which is Jerome Alexandre 777 official.
Yeah, you've got quite a few followers, and I was on there earlier. So yeah, that's probably a good place to find you.
Yeah, and I'm constantly doing things. I mean, I'm gonna be doing some work with Rose McDowell. Do you remember her from Strawberry Switchblade?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
doing
I
tour.
think so. Yeah.
I'm doing a tour with her next year. I've also been working with Andy Blade from Eater. Do you remember the punk band Eater?
Yes, I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on some of his solo stuff. So I'm always doing stuff, you know.
Oh, that sounds
So
good. It sounds like you're really busy. Did you I had this meant to ask you about this earlier on. Did you play with Star Chalet?
did I play with Starsha Lee?
Well, did they support you in some
Oh
gigs or
yeah,
something?
yeah. Deadcuts did quite a few gigs with them. Yeah.
Yeah, because we had Crispin on. He's a cool guy.
I like Crispin a lot. He's
Yeah,
awesome.
he's a really cool guy. I'm going to sort of stop the recording, but don't go anywhere. I'll have a quick chat with you afterwards. But
Wicked, man.
thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been a real pleasure. It's
Thanks
been
for
really
having
nice to
me.
hear about. No, it's been a real
And I
pleasure.
really
So,
enjoy your podcast, man. I really
oh,
enjoy it. It's been
thanks.
great watching all the episodes. They're really good, man.
Yeah,
So
no,
thanks for having me. Yeah,
we love it.
nice.
Right, I'll stop this and we'll have a quick chat. So there we go. That was Jerome from Deadcuts. Really nice guy, I think you'd agree. And he really talks fondly of Mark. It was really nice to hear that he's finished the album off and that's coming out. So I'm really excited to listen to that. I think it's going to be a really great album and a really nice legacy to Mark. So thanks to Jerome for coming on. I think you'll all agree it was quite an emotional and heartfelt chat we had with Jerome. So really appreciate that. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, then please do give it a thumbs up. If you're watching, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what you thought of the interview. And yeah, subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening, then please do give us a 5-star rating so that it shoots us up the podcast charts so we can get back in that top 20 and more people can listen to the podcast. So, what's our exciting news about next week's podcast? Well, we have Jim Bob from Carter on. But not only that, it's the first of a two-parter. So the week after that, we have Les from Carter on too. So we are dedicating 2 episodes to Carter. Why not? Great band. I think we've got a lot of love for them on our Facebook group. So why not? So next week, Jim Bob. Week after, Les, aka Fruit Bat, will be on a two-parter, a Carter two-parter. So that's exciting. I think you're going to really enjoy them. Yeah, and you'll see Dave again. So double whammy, isn't it? But thanks so much for tuning in. We do appreciate it. See you in a minute.